I had an amazing family, incredible friends, and I didn't ever feel like anything was missing by not knowing my birth family or my birth culture. And for as far back as I can remember, my life was full, but our stories, they always run deeper than what we can remember. Over the last 4 years, what was once just my fun fact has now become a central part of my funky Georgian American life. Something that has redefined my every move, given me a new sense of purpose, and has molded me into the most confident, authentic version of myself. But before we fast forward too far, we have to set the stage. So in 2018, I had just moved to New York City to chase my dream of becoming a Broadway star, of course. And that same Christmas, my parents gifted me a 23andMe DNA kit because I was curious about my medical history. But that simple gift quietly planted a seed to roots that I never expected to discover. After I got my results, I saw that I was healthy, very Georgian by my DNA, and I didn't have any close relative matches on the platform. But extremely supportive of my growing curiosity at this time, my parents reconnected with someone who had hosted them in Georgia when they came in 1996 to adopt me, a Georgian diplomat. Now, he assured my mom that my birth family, they were happy, healthy, and they did not absolutely ever want to be contacted. Full stop. I remember this moment in my New York apartment. It's a vivid memory, and realizing for the first time the weight of international adoption. I had never really considered that on the other side of my fun fact, there were real people with their own side of the story, which probably wasn't so fun. In this moment, my birth family became human to me rather than characters in a distant story. I started to wonder, did these strangers, my birth family, have quiet, mournful moments every year thinking about me and wondering where I might be in the world? Had this day become a painful reminder for them while I blissfully on the other side of the world celebrated? Why had I never considered any of this before? For the first time, as they say in Georgia, sitskli skribili, I felt my blood screaming. Fast forward a year, and I'm working on board cruise ships as an entertainer, and I'm one out of only 10 Americans on board out of over 1,300. And suddenly, my fun fact is not that I'm Georgian, but it's that I'm American. And when my friends would say to me, "Oh, it's so cool that you're American," I found myself correcting them and going, "Well, actually, I was born in Georgia." And after being quarantined in 2020 for a while, I decided to move back home with my parents for the pandemic. And during this time period, I became very close to someone who was actively fascinated by my Georgian roots. But still, I was terrified that being curious about my beginnings might somehow diminish this deep love and reverence that I had for my family and my life. But still, I didn't think you'd actually find anything. I mean, I'd literally done a DNA test years before and found no one. But then he just glanced at my adoption paperwork, and there it was. My birth parents' names and address. He asked if we could do a social media search together, and I warned him, "Okay, but even if you find anything, do not tell me. I'm absolutely sure." See, I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out of this journey, and acutely aware that if I did decide to open that door, I could never close it. Well, 20 minutes later, he found a family in Zugdidi with the names that matched: Mother Irma, Father Gela, 2 twin sisters, and a brother. My American grandmother, by the way, who had just passed away, was named Irma Georgiana. It felt so aligned and so deep. How did he, in 20 minutes, find an answer to a question that I never even dared to ask for 20 years? Then it quickly turned into, you know what, just show me. It is amazing what wine can do. And I think in movies, you have this expectation that when you see your birth family in photos for the first time, you'll just know. And it'll be this slow, cinematic build up with an orchestra playing in the background. And I am here to tell you that was not at all my experience. Looking at my supposed sisters, Taco and Lika, I thought to myself, no, there's no way. These girls are very thin, very beautiful, have very dark features, and I'm not convinced. Then we got to the father, no, and the mother, maybe. And then we got to Temo. Deep set, light eyes, a round face, light brown hair, maybe. Maybe. Could this be my brother? These were the whispers of my head and my heart, but my mouth to my friend said, well, thanks for looking, but there's really no way to know, so let's just forget about it. Well, I could not forget about it. For the next several weeks, I kept intense tabs on this family. I had been raised Christian, but I didn't have a personal relationship with God at the time. But still, at this time, I remember praying, God, I don't want to make a huge mistake. Will my parents be okay with this? Well, 3 weeks into this social media stalking situation on a family vacation, I loosely hinted to my aunts that I might have found my Georgian family on Facebook. And they were very excited. And they said that my parents would be too. What happens when the seed gets planted and roots start to uncover, but you're scared of what might grow? Well, 2 days after this family vacation, I got a message on 23andMe from Sophie Gvasalia, born in Georgia, raised in Georgia, living in Italy, confirmed by blood, my second cousin. I immediately searched her name and photo on Facebook, and when I saw that she was friends with the family that I had been looking at from afar, I knew it was them. I knew it was God's move. What was planted was watered, and whether or not I was ready or not, it did not matter anymore because it was growing fast. I ran downstairs and told my parents, and my mom's first words were, so, when are we going to Georgia? Sophie called her dad, who called my birth father, and he apparently started dancing, singing, and praising God in the streets for this discovery. And within days, all of us were in touch online, using Google Translate, of course, to communicate. My parents, my birth parents, my siblings, me, all together, sending many, many selfies and many emojis. And it's important to note that around this same time, I was in final casting consideration for a new TV show on CBS, The Real Love Boat, which was a dream opportunity for me, though nothing was confirmed yet. What's more, when I told my job at Princess Cruises what I needed to do and where I needed to go, they sent me and my parents on an 18-day transatlantic cruise to cross the ocean to Georgia together. We packed our bags, held our breath, aware that this could go any way, held each other, and headed for Tbilisi. And as you can see, right away when we landed in Tbilisi, it was like this unconventional puzzle with no common experiences and no common languages, just instantly became a perfect fit. You can see my mom embracing my birth mother and just everyone embracing. Talk about building bridges and breaking barriers. And I felt like I was on a cloud. I was intoxicated by the warmth of my closest biological relatives whom I had never met and my family whom I had shared everything with, just bonding together seamlessly. After spending our first few nights in Tbilisi, we traveled to Samegrelo, the western region of Georgia, where my family grew up and where the family home was in Zugdidi. I discovered that not only were we Georgian, but we were Megrelians, special Georgians from the western region who had their own language, culture, customs, food, everything. And this was significant for me because this was not them. We were Megrelians. This was something that we shared factually, genetically, instinctively. I did not need to study McGruley to qualify. I just was. And after driving through the mountains in this Marshutka van all together, singing along to American songs in matching tie-dyed outfits from my aunt in New York, I was thinking, I have never been this happy in my entire life. What touched me the most was how lovingly and wholly my siblings and my birth parents cared for my parents. Going as far as to find a removable van so my dad, who is a big man, could stretch out comfortably without me even asking them to do it. It showed me that I wouldn't be the only one who had to worry about them anymore. I wasn't one of one. I was one of four. As we started to near our destination in Zugdidi, it went dark, it was way past midnight, and the streets started to fill with neighbors. And my sisters, I remember they were filming my reaction, and there were people waving at the car, and I am thinking, what's going on? It seemed like there was a festival happening in the middle of the night in this little Georgian village, and I just assumed that this would soon be explained to me from my sister in the back seat, that this was some Georgian tradition that I had just never experienced before. But can you imagine what it feels like to be welcomed in the middle of the night by 30 plus strangers, only to realize that they've all come for you? The entire neighborhood gathered to celebrate our arrival. And I had never seen anything like this before in my life. I was dumbfounded. And what transpired next, I can still only recall through the photos and videos. I was completely overwhelmed by emotion and adrenaline. But somewhere in between the tears, the laughter, the dancing, the singing, and the wine, I do remember seeing all of my neighbors and my relatives basically kissing my parents, honoring them for the amazing people that they are and for the incredible parents that they were to me, which, as you can guess, wrecked me. And then and there, in that moment, Zugdidi, Georgia became my happy place. Not because it was my hometown, but because they were honored there. My parents. The people who gave me everything. Finally seen, finally celebrated in the way that I had always seen them and had always hoped that the world would too. It was as if the roots that I had uncovered had grown wide enough to hold them too. Because the truth is, they were a part of them all along. We stayed up all night at this Supra, singing and dancing with the neighbors. And at one point, I remember had pulled me aside, eager to show me something. We were standing on the second floor of the house, something unfinished, kind of like an attic, if you can imagine. And he smiled shyly and, of course, typed into Google Translate, "This part of the home is not finished." We have this issue in Georgia. He explained to me that there's a lot of immigration and people have to leave the country to work because there's not enough jobs here. He explained that there's never enough people home in the family to finish what was started. Finishing what was started here is my dream. And in that moment, I saw myself in him, just someone wanting the best for their family. I saw all of us, and everything was pointing backward, forward. It was so deep, but it definitely pointed to something so much bigger than us. And again, I began to pray. God, if the reason that you have given me this life, and all this love and all of these opportunities was so that I would one day come back here and help build and finish what was started, make it so clear to me. Make it clear and I will do it. I got the news that I had been cast on that television show, The Real Love Boat, and I would need to leave Georgia for filming in Barcelona in 5 days. It felt like the seed and the roots had all come together and finally led to a bloom, and my childhood dream was coming true. Only now I understood why it mattered. And in the process, I uncovered a new dream. And as much as I have always loved and respected my parents, What they showed me on this visit was beyond words. Their support was total, unconditional, and selfless. They never flinched, never hesitated, not once as I went on this journey. It was amazing. And what I've gone through is probably not relatable at all, but still, I do think there is something here for everyone. I thought that by embracing my Georgian identity, I might lose a part of what I had already loved: my life, my family, everything I knew about the world. I was terrified of what I might learn and of who I might hurt. But I didn't lose anything. I gained everything. I was raised with so much love. I had the kind of childhood that so many people could only dream of. And so when people ask my mom, Nancy, wasn't it hard watching Ezra go through this and reconnect with her family? Didn't you feel threatened? Her answer was, and is now, always has been the same. Why would I ever want fewer people to love her? This is just more love in her life and in mine. And that is what this journey has been. Not a loss, not a replacement, but an expansion. And here is the quiet miracle of PESVEBI, the roots. They run deeper than we can see and further than we can even imagine, really. And there's a quote from the Georgian film PESVEBI, which I will never forget. The height of a tree is not measured from above ground, but from the roots. And in my own way, by retracing my PESVEBI, I found where my strength comes from. And I realized my American family was never separate from my roots. They were a part of it all along. This was never about choosing one identity or the other. This was about trusting that God's design was never divided, but it was layered, intentional, and complete. And it's true that when you understand where you come from and how you got there, you walk a little stronger into where you're going. You understand and appreciate the differences and all of the foundations that built upon each other that allowed you to soar above ground. And not only that, you begin to see others differently too. You appreciate other cultures more. You understand why we're all so different and just how beautiful, rich, and significant every story really is. You stop comparing because you know, like my mom knows, there is always room for more love. And now, whenever people ask me for my fun fact, I just smile and ask them, how much time do you have? Madlo ba sa Cartbello, Champion Chucky, Miko Hearts Alian. Thank you.